but my God, he was impressive doing it.
Hello, hello, hello. It's great to be back here on the Jump Show alongside Dan and Jake once again for a tremendous weekend of racing. We hope there could be an inspection at Sandown on Saturday due to some very high winds, 40 to 50 mile an hour gusts, but hopefully we shall navigate those with style. Of course, it's the Becher meeting in Aintree as well, so there's loads going on. And once again, we'd love a subscribe and we'd love 150 likes once again. As ever, I hate to go on, but it really does help us out, help us make videos, which hopefully you're all enjoying. Let's say hello to the dynamic duo. Come to you, Jake, first. How are things, mate?
Yeah, it was a bit of a tough weekend last weekend, but we move on. As we said before, we got racing, good racing every week up until Christmas, and yeah, we've got another weekend to get stuck into, and there's plenty of rain around, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, there's loads at Chelmsford tonight. I saw a bit of that there. And one thing I think we should do, actually, Jake, because I don't think we did it much, is trumpet when we have good weeks, because I think we had a really good week 2 weeks ago. Is that right? Or maybe 3 weeks ago, where pretty much everything
Yeah.
we ticked out of Play Store won. So, yeah, a bit late now. Get the trumpets out for the after timing. But next time that happens, i.e., this weekend, we will make sure we let you know about it on the video. Dan, how are things, my friend?
Yeah, all good. I mean, I ticked over okay. I mean, last weekend, obviously, I mean, Can Do Kid was a year-long plan in the making. I mean, I'd kind of gone cold on him late on, but I mean, I think you do that with any horse you fancy for a year for a certain race. But that was fun. Hermino won, some scope placed at 25s. It wasn't a disastrous week, and I think going into it, you knew it was going to be quite difficult. And I think the way the Newbury ground panned out, we were probably expecting it to be softer than it was. And obviously, that never helps. I mean, that's kind of the crux of playing weatherman and pundit at the same time. It's not always going to work out, and it might be a similar story this weekend as well.
No, but you are a man of many talents, so I'm sure you can encompass both of those under your wing. Right, first things first then, lads. Let's go on to a notable performance of the week in a week that saw, yeah, quite a lot of jumps meetings, it has to be said. Jake, come to you first.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go to one of the few things I did get right last weekend, and that was Amsterdam in the 4-year-old hurdle. Now, obviously, a lot of it has been made of his performance. He had some decent form in France. Obviously, did miss his whole juvenile campaign, which is a shame because clearly he's a very talented horse. And yeah, the way he won at Ferryhouse was ultra impressive. It was a really, really good performance. Hit the line hard. Couldn't be pulled up after the line as well by Paul Townend. He was nearly going down to Ballyhack afterwards as well. So look, it was a great performance, but I do think there's a little bit of people getting carried away that we've seen, an unexposed first time out horse, unbeaten, Willie Mullins, Joe Donnelly. I think there's a lot of boxes ticked, but I do think that champion hurdle talk might be a bit far-fetched. I know it's coming from the yard as well as everyone else, but yeah, it was an ultra impressive performance, but I want to see him do it again. Something very interesting about him as a horse is the fact that he's not a novice, so therefore he doesn't need to do the 5 runs rules for a handicap hurdle. So I do wonder if maybe next time we'd see him, maybe he doesn't run quite as well. Maybe we could see him, drop down to a county. I think that he's guaranteed to have a mark in probably the high 140s, probably low 150s at a minimum at this point, just from that performance of the weekend. But yeah, but maybe have handicap aspirations for him as much as you can have champion hurdle aspirations for him. That's all I would say.
Oh, interesting. Okay, you're not particularly keen on potentially his prospects at the top level, but you've made a
I'm
decent
not
move.
writing him off. It's just I think
Yeah,
he
yeah.
still has a lot to prove.
How good is
Yeah.
the jumps where a horse can win a grade 3 doing handstands, and we're immediately thinking, be good in a handicap, that thing. What a game.
I suppose the thing is, I mean, the Donnellys have got him, they got State Man, and they got Sagino, so
Yeah.
a wealth of riches for that owner at the moment. Dan, what was your highlight of the week?
Oh, and this time of year, we can go on about so many. I did last week. I won't do again this week. I'll keep it to one. And from this year's juvenile to last year's, and Salva is a horse we've talked about many, many times in the build up to this season, it seems. Finally got out, finally ran. They thought they'd found soft ground, and they were wrong. It was pretty quick, and he just struggled on it as he unexpectedly did so. I guess it was probably to be expected on ground quicker than ideal. Bit outpaced in the Jerry Field and kept on well, not beating all that far in the end in fourth. Remains on a mark 143. We know last year's juveniles were a good bunch. The form just keeps stacking up. Obviously, he was arguably the best British juvenile and what he achieved in the Triumph Hurdle. he's seemingly got to have a good handicap in him at some stage this season on 2 miles, 2.5 miles, whatever it is on soft heavy ground. I did read that they're looking at the National Spirit come the end of February as a
Okay.
possible kind of end of season target, which I'm not surprised. I don't think they're going to aim for the moon with him as a 4 going on 5 year old, but that's generally a bit of a winnable race. But in the interim, I'd like to think he could claim a decent handicap off that mark 143 when he finally gets his soft ground.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Dan. I think he's quite ground dependent. I'm going to go to Musselburgh, where Wise Eagle ran. You might know him from the flats. He ran the November Handicap. He's run in plenty of staying races and done very well in some of them over the course of the last few years. And Connections have decided to go the hurdles route this time. And he absolutely bolted up on his novice debut, winning very easily. His biggest danger did fall at the last, but he was well clear anyway. He would have won doing handstands. He's rated 102 on the flat. So we're talking about a very good horse here going hurdling. And he did win as he liked on his novice debut. And I think the most notable thing is that he was given a mark of 123 on jumps, over jumps. So if you take his flat form as a marker, then Wise Eagle looks extremely well handicapped. And I thought his hurdling technique for a first timer was pretty good as well from the front. So the other thing about him as well is that in his flat races, he was always held up, whereas they changed tactics this time. And he seemed to like it, so that's good. Okay, lads, on to Sandown, shall we? Saturday. Let's talk about the Henry VIII Novices Chase. A real intriguing renewal here with Lodu Surd, who's been so impressive so far in 2 starts in novice chases, taking on a couple of Gordon Elliott runners. Rubo goes over fences for the first time. There's a lot happening in this race, and I feel bad for saying this, but I do miss the halcyon days of the likes of Moscow Flyer and Sprinter Sacra and even Corto Star, of course, and more recently Altior and Inderso in the Tingle Creek. We haven't really got that this year. I think John Bond's good. I think he's amazing. So actually, I think I'm more excited about the Henry VIII. Dan, what do you make of the race?
Yeah, I'd say this is definitely the race to look forward to. I mean, thank God for the Irish, otherwise it really would be a depressing affair. And the Irish don't tend to get too many things wrong with their race planning. It's much better than ours. But getting rid of that 2 mile Grade 1 over Christmas is one of the strangest decisions I've seen. But ultimately, this race has been one of the beneficiaries of it. Obviously, we would not have got Down Memory Lane and Touch Me Not here. I don't think anyone expected both to run, and it does add a lot of depth to the race. Adds a lot of pace angles as well. Obviously, Touch Me Not's been very impressive from the front. Down Memory Lane made all on his chase debut. Soul Icon will go forward. Rubo's participation is probably in doubt, and I think we have to mention the rain because Sandown were due 10 mils today as of Thursday, another 10 mil probably before racing due as well. If it gets too soft, I doubt he'll run on this on his chase debut. It would seem a real bridge too far for him. And look, I think Down Memory Lane will be popular. I think they'll see the kind of more flashy profile, came with a very big reputation. Obviously, you can forgive the run in the Future Champions when he went off a short price because he just hated the ground. Or the ground isn't going to be absolutely abysmal on the chase course at Sandown. It very rarely is. And they'll look at the horses he beat on his chase debut, and they'll say that is form that's worth far more than Loda Suds. I don't think that's necessarily true. Ultimately, he has beaten a high caliber of horse, but you've really got to question what they were there to do and how the race panned out. I mean, he got the run of the race from the front. It was a finishing speed of 110%. King of Kingsfield in second. We know what he does. He places in main hurdles. He then places in grade ones. Obviously, he was seemingly the fancied runner. He did what King of Kingsfield generally does. You had Nürburgring back in third, who went on to basically finish the exact same distance behind Touch Me Not next time out. Birdie or Bust looked like a very much a nice, steady introduction to fencings for her, even though she had some very good mare's novice hurdle form. I just don't think that is actually got that much depth to it once you scratch beneath the surface. Whereas a Loda Sud only beat Lookaway and Western Zephyr at Cheltenham. But my God, he was impressive doing it. Like, that was a truly run race, and he tracked the pace all the way. Those front two had a finishing speed of 100. He had a finishing speed of 104% rather. Absolutely quickened up after tracking a strong pace. I think you have to mark that up on ground. It was probably quicker than ideal for him. He jumps really professionally, and he'll be the one who really benefits if there is a strong pace here, which there's probably a good chance of being. With at least 2 of these, probably going to make sure that this is not steadily run whatsoever. I'd like to see him drift out slightly, and I think I do have some hope that he will. If he gets to around 6-4, I'll be backing. I won't be backing at evens, but I suspect Down Memory Lane and even Touch Me Not to a certain extent will come for support because they have a bit more of the flashy profile, whereas Loda Sud maybe not getting the credit he deserves, but I think he's achieved far more than these over fences thus far.
Okay, Dan. Yeah, good stuff. I think he'll win as well. I hope he does too. Be great to see a real top-class novice chaser. The British, wouldn't it, going into the Arkle picture? Go on, Jake. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I'm with Dan. I think Lotus is going to take all the beating here, but it is really interesting, obviously, to see those Gordon Elliott horses lining up. I think Rabode, whether he turned up or not, I'd be against him here first time up over fences. I think it's a very tough ask against some horses who are one, more experienced, and two, very good as well in their own right. So yeah, very interesting race. Touch Me Not is a brilliant jumper. The way he beat Farron Groy the other day, that would obviously give you some hope that he could do something here. Down memory lane looked very impressive himself. Obviously, he's got a bit more of an unknown profile. But yeah, Load of Sud has got the form in the book. That win at Cheltenham the other day was very impressive. If he can, keep on going like he should, improve run to run, especially on this sort of ground that we're going to get this weekend, I think that's right up his street. I think there's a lot to like about him. Yeah, he's definitely the deserved favourite.
Yeah, and I think he'll love the test at Sandown. It does reward good jumpers, and he certainly is that. I could see him pinging those railway fences and putting them all under pressure. I mean, I'm sure he'll come from behind, but if you jump them better than the rest of them, it makes you look good. Okay, 225 next. It's a handicap hurdle, and I think a pretty intriguing one. There's not loads of runners here. I think we've just got the 9 of them, but Nemean Lion heads the weights, and we've got the unbeaten Cabral du Mathin, the likes of Willmans in there as well. So a couple of horses with plenty of potential. Jake, what do you think of this?
I really hate the look of this race. Honestly, I am. I found it so tricky to sum up. Obviously, you've got Cabral de Matan and Willman at the top of the market, which are understandably there just purely on potential. Cabral de Matan, I think he kind of ruined his mark the last day at Kempton, where they ran in a conditionals race, and if they could get him out within, I think it's 7 to 10 days, they could have ran again without a penalty and absolutely hacked up again. But there was no race for him apparently, which was perhaps an oversight from the trainer beforehand. But anyway, he's now up to 131, so he's gone at £8 for that, and I think obviously he could still win off that mark. It just makes life a lot tougher than it would have done had he not gone up in the weights. Outer Belly was an old friend of mine. I don't
Is
know
he a
what to make of
friend?
him anymore. Yeah, well, exactly.
He's let us down for 2 years.
Literally every time I've thought he's been lined up for a race, he's let us down. Knickerbocker Glory has just been smashed off the board since it's come up that it's going to be soft ground, so that wouldn't really interest me anymore. Nemean Lion, I think he probably would be the most interesting of these, but he's off 150 these days, which is quite a tough ask first time up. So yeah, no, it's just a no bet race for me, and I'll be watching with intrigue.
Okay, yeah, I actually quite like Nemean Lion. He might pick in the race just because he'll love the ground. And we know what that hurdles course does at Sandown if the rain hits it. I mean, it could become a real slog, and we've had a lot of rain today. He handles conditions really well. He's the class act in the race. He's got a high handicap mark, as you say, but at the same time, he handles conditions better than the rest, and they can run really well. Dan, what do you think?
I'm fully on board with Jake. I could not get my head around this race whatsoever. I will be leaving it well alone for all the reasons he's mentioned. No need to dwell on it anymore. I mean, we'll agree on a few things, but I don't think we ever agreed on definitely wanting to avoid a race so strongly before. Because normally this is quite accessible. Like 9 runner handicap hurdle on a decent caliber. You'd think you'd find something in there that would appeal, but I just think this is really trappy, and I will leave it well alone.
Okay, fair enough. We move swiftly on to the Betfair Tingle Creek Chase, Grade 1. John Bond 7 to 4 on. Got 8 runners today. Sorry, on Saturday. Very much not today. Boot Hill, Edwardstone, JPR1, Master Chewy, Quilixios, Solness, and Unexpected Party should theoretically be a win for John Bond, shouldn't it, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely should. It's nice to see him taking on some different horses for a change in Quilixios and JPR1, namely Master Chewy in there as well. Rare to get 8 runner Grade 1 fields, and hopefully they all stand their ground. Look, I mean, people are going to crab him from last time out, and obviously he keeps beating Boot Hill and Edwardstone. Get all that. I think last time probably didn't seem to best effect these days. Slowly run race, quick ground. He did dictate, so he had the run of the race, but I think really you see his best performances when it's a strongly run race. He isn't having to make his own pace on softer ground. Should get that here with plenty of pace angles. Everything has to come up to his level. I hope JPR1 does go here because firstly, they were talking about not running him for ages, and they were also he's entered in the race at Kelso. And I just do have in my mind that they're going to look at it come tomorrow morning around next time, and they're going to look, right, Tommy's Oscar is in there, and he's giving us £2. Now, who do we want to take on? John Bonoff levels or Tommy's Oscar giving us £2? I think they may end up swaying, but I hope they don't because ultimately they've talked this horse up a lot, and he now wants to go improve it finally. I still think he's a bit in and out myself, and his record generally speaks to him not being the most consistent, but very good on his day. John Bond should win, and I hope they all turn up, and I hope we get at least some intrigue come out of the race rather than just being a whitewash performance, really.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hope it is a race as well. I hope we get, John Bon off the bridle and to work for it. Um, I feel a bit sorry, Jake, for Boot Hill. 'Cause I think any horse that's rated up 100, 160, I mean, you're rated 160 in the 2 miles for him. I mean, what do? You're off a massive weight in the handicap. I mean, there's not much you can do, is there?
Yeah, I mean, the race at Kempton on, is it the 27th, the Desert Orchid? That's probably the ideal race for him, really, isn't it? To a limited handicap, go for that one. He didn't really look to be tried that hard at Cheltenham the last day either, did he? When he finished second, he was kind of given a couple slaps up the neck, and that was about it. So I don't know. Perhaps they've got bigger targets in mind. Perhaps this is the big target they've got in mind. But yeah, it is a very interesting race. I'm very happy to see all 8 turn up as well from the entry stage. That was good to see. JPL1 has got bigger horses to worry about than Tommy's Oscar, Dan. I'll tell you about that one later on in the show.
I
But
didn't look through that race much. I just saw the top. I thought it was quite funny that poor 9-year-old Tommy's Oscar still giving weight away all around. The poor guy.
yeah, he is. But yeah, I'll let you know in the anything else section about the horse I've got in that race. But Qualixos is very interesting. I really like him as a horse. Obviously, he was my Triumph Hurdle horse when he won that. Done really well over fences. Obviously, was very impressive the last day. But John Bond's 4 from 4 at Sandown. Like this is his playground, really, isn't it? He's beat El Fabiolo here and everything. So yeah, John Bond obviously is the deserving favourite, and he should be the one who wins this.
Yeah, he probably should be, shouldn't he? I mean, I rather hope Everstone runs well. He's had that run back now, and he's won the race before. I know that he was beaten fair and square in this last year, but on his day, he's got significant class. I just hope he can run a good race.
You're getting so sentimental. Like all these horses just keep running. You're like, I feel so sorry for them. I mean, I want to feel sorry for Boot Hill. He won 2 like 100 grand handicaps last year.
Yeah.
Like the boy's done fine. Don't you worry. He's done well. Just it's
£314,000 in prize money. I think connections
Yeah.
will sleep okay.
And yet Bully's playing the world's smallest violin for him. Aww. Edward Stone, the Arkle winner. Aww. Come on, Bully. This is the game.
No, you're absolutely right. Do you know what? I'm getting sentimental in my old age. That's what it is.
Worrying developments. By the time you're 60, you're going to be a weeping mess.
Do you know what? The great thing for me as well is that neither Matata nor Matator have turned up in the Tingle Creek, so the potential clash remains on, which is very exciting. Okay, let's move on to the 335. The Betfair Exchange London National Handicap Chase. Aye. Over 3 miles, 4.5 furlongs. If we get more than 2 or 3 finishes, I'll be quite surprised, given what conditions look like they're going to be. Tommy Bowen there, after running out at Cheltenham over the cross-country fences last time, certainly red, Ballygoffin Cottage. Mr. Vango, top of the bill, Broken Halo, Unanswered Prayers, Collector's Item, Montgomery. Tonkwell legend, Dr. Kananga, the great Dr. Kananga. What a wonderful jumper of a fence he is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jake, what do you reckon?
Yeah, it's a very competitive race, isn't it? Lots of stayers and old timers in here. I think Mr. Bango is the deserved favourite. That run where he hacked up at Exeter, it's at the Devon National at the back end of last season. That was very impressive. Hasn't had his conditions since. Well, he was third in the National Hunt Chase where it was heavy, and then obviously at Ayr he went off fave, but it was never soft enough for him. So I can see him being fab. He'd obviously want every single bit of rain that falls to have the best chance possible. The one I was really interested in here, though, is top of the bill for Nigel Twiston-Davies. Obviously, he had Beauport the other day go and hack up in the race at Ascot in the London National. He's got top of the bill here. Now, last season, he developed really well over fences. He picked up 3 wins in the end, all of them over 3 miles. Has probably a preference to go out to his left a little bit, but all his wins have come over right-handed tracks. So he's got a bit of an odd profile, but I just think that he's a type of horse that will appreciate stepping up to 3 mile 4. I think he just stays and stays and stays, kind of stays at the one pace as well, but he likes to dictate. He likes to get out there. I don't know if he'll be able to, have an easy lead this time, but he'll be nice and prominent. And yeah, I just think he'll have a good chance from the front because he's that battle hardened, Nigel Twiston-Davies type that likes this type of event. So yeah, I thought he had a good chance off a mark of 135, only £2 higher than his latest win.
Okay, good case made, to be fair, Jake. What do you make of it then, Dan? The annual Stamina Sapper.
Aren't you just so delighted this race is back? You were head in hands about a couple of weeks ago. You thought it had gone. Like, I'm
I
just
did.
delighted for you.
I thought it moved to Ascot, didn't I?
Yeah, yeah, because there was another extended 3 mile handicap, and you were like, "Where's my favourite race gone?" It's here, and my God,
Yeah,
there are some slow
I don't know why I
beasts
thought
in
it had gone.
this. My
Weird.
Lord, there is. I look down a list of very glacially slow horses in this list, and it kind of makes my heart flutter, to be honest. Like, Collector's Item is the slowest horse I have ever seen.
Oh
Coldwell
yeah.
Legend is not far behind him in that regard. Valley Griffin Cottage, a horse I used to love, just hates. He doesn't. He's not quick enough for 3 miles and doesn't stay a yard further, which is a bit of an issue. I have to admit, probably not a race I will get involved in. To be honest, the one I came closest to was Broken Halo. I think it's been the target for a while. If you read Paul Nichols's Horses in Training book, he put it out that this has been the target. Loves Sandown, was going well in this race last year when coming down 2 out just as the race was about to develop. Harry Covden back on board. I think there's a lot to like, but not a race I'm massively enamoured by from a betting perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't got any huge thoughts now either, to be honest. I thought Unanswered Prayers did it really well, dropped in grade last time. Stays the trip. The ground would be a slight worry with him. I think he wants it a little bit quicker than soft ground, despite the fact he has won on soft ground in the past. But it was good to see him back to winning ways. And I think he's probably a stayer to keep the right side of. I think that's what he wants at a trip these days. And I think those smaller nationals are going to be open to him on decent ground. If it's not too soft on Saturday, which it probably will be, I think he's probably going to struggle. But he's worth keeping an eye for the future. Let's move on to Aintree, shall we? Because they've got the Becher Chase and a couple of other good handicaps too. We're going to start looking at the 132. That is 2.5 handicap. And Springwell Bay, Richmond Lake, Dr. TJ Eckelberg, No Risk Day Flow, Grandad's Cottage, Reelstone, Salamanca Bay, Serendipity, Whistle and Dark are the declarees. Dan, come to you for this. Springwell Bay going to win?
Absolutely not. We need to touch on the weather, I think, firstly, because Aintree is going to get attritional. Go back to this time last year. My God, it was hard work. I think this was the infamous race where Pembroke won. Did he win the Novice Chase? And the Racing Post commentary was like, finished alone and tired. Still one of the greatest lines I've ever seen from a post-race analysis, and it was extremely true. And so I think you need to look at any horse who's going to handle really attritional conditions, and Springwell Bay is a keen going horse, obviously too keen last time out. Generally, all his best form is on good ground and tends to go well fresh. So I really can't have him as favourite. Richmond Lake should be favourite. I imagine he will be. I think he'll get back because obviously he won this race last year in, well, very attritional conditions, despite probably one of the most dramatic final jumps I've ever seen, where despite being slowed into the fence for about 30 seconds, he still just kind of threw his body through the fence. Luckily for him, nothing else was in the race and he got away with it. But back down to the same mark, I can see him shortening from 7 to 2. The one I thought was interesting each way is Serendipity, who has been backed a bit from 14 to 1s down to 10 to 1 now, going into single figures. So this is probably conditions I think he'll appreciate. The Smooth Swift and Joel Parkinson combination finally got their first winner and celebrated it. I think they compared it to winning the Gold Cup. I mean, it was a class 3 at Carlisle. So steady, but celebrate the little victories, I say. Enjoy them all. And look, this is a yard we know tends to get into it later into the depths of winter. I think their time is coming. A lot of the horses now been running well. And Serendipity shaped really well on his reappearance behind Jaguar when he first seen on ground too quick for him. You go back through his record, he's won second time out on both seasons under rules thus far, including on heavy ground. All his best form, he's generally been on flat left-handed tracks, which he should see him to best effect. And he's still relatively unexposed. They've always thought a fair bit of him. They ran him in the EBF final a couple of seasons ago. They don't tend to overextend horses they don't think are up to it. So I think he still has a bit of potential of his current mark. I say I hope he'll handle the conditions. I think he should. And he's got a relatively lightweight, which should prove beneficial in a race like this.
Okay, good stuff, Dan. Thanks for that. I don't have too many thoughts on this other than the fact that it turns into a bit of a slog. I think Dr. TJ Eckelberg could be suited by that. But I think he had a hard race last time, so I wouldn't necessarily be too confident about that. But at least he comes here in good form. Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, as Dan said, very attritional. 25 millimeters have fallen since midnight as we're recording right now. So there's plenty more to come as well. So it's going to be heavy ground I'm working off, and I'm looking for my mudlarks. And, you know, Dan's already mentioned him. Richmond Lake is going to be the one that I'm with here, just purely for the fact that he handled the conditions so well last year. He's back down to that same winning mark of 142. Brian Hughes is back aboard this time. Obviously, had a really good spin in the Grand Zeppelin last time, where he finished fourth, back over the conventional fences. I think that he will take some stopping.
Lovely stuff. Let's move on, shall we, to the Boyle Sports Becher Handicap Chase. Always a fine sight. 3 miles too, but again, could be very hard work in the suspected conditions. King Turgeon proved himself adept over the fences last time, didn't he? Chianti Classico, Celebra de Len, Arizona Candle, Iron Bridge, etc., etc. Big field declared for this. Well, actually, not a big field, 12 runners, but bigger than some we've been talking about so far. Jake, come straight back to you. What do you like in this?
Yeah, well, obviously, I was with Gaborio for the Grand Sefton, and he ran a cracker on ground that was probably a bit too quick and a trip that was probably a little bit too short. He now steps up in trip, gets his softer ground. I can see all the claims he's got. He's £3 out the handicap though, which I don't really like. I know that, over the national fences you can see that as a bit of a specialist subject type thing where if he's out the handicap a little bit, it doesn't matter too much. But I thought that him shortening into 92 Fav alongside King Turgeon, I thought that was fairly short. I can obviously see his winning chance. It's all laid out to see, but I thought it was a bit short. Chianti Classico was obviously really interesting in here. Been on the right side of him the last couple of times that he's won. I'm kind of thinking that he doesn't really need to win this, and it should realistically be more of a spin around over the fences if he does run. Obviously, the ground, if it gets too bad, maybe they might think about pulling him. But yeah, if he runs off 157 and goes and wins, then it's really hard to see him winning a national, isn't it? So I'd hazard a guess that they're going to go for a little spin around and just see how he gets on. But that's just me guessing. But the one that I do like is Iron Bridge for John Joe O'Neill. I actually backed him last time out at Carlisle, where he has a pretty decent record on good to soft ground, but it was kind of in his younger days, I guess. And he ran well for third. It was as I said, it was probably ground a bit too quick for him in the end. He just plugged on, in the dying stages. But it was a good run, good return. He's off a mark of 136, which I still think is very well handicapped. He was second in the Welsh National last year, albeit being very well beaten. And then he was third in the Grand National trial as well. I don't think he really stays 4 mile plus because he tried that a couple of times at the end of the season as well. But I think 3 mile two on some, really testing heavy ground, I think that is probably the ideal conditions that he needs. He looks the type that would jump Grand National fences with absolutely no bother at all. And also, this has always been the plan. So in John Joe O'Neill's stable tour at the beginning of the season, they said that the Grand Sefton was their early season target with him. And unlike some of the horses in here, he's just got nothing to hide. Like, he's off 136. If they win a race, that they're just going to be over the moon about it. They're not going to be, protecting him for future targets. So yeah, I thought Iron Bridge had a really nice each way chance.
Okay, Iron Bridge for Jake. Dave, I'm about to call you Dave. Dan, what do you think?
We've only known each other a few years, so easily done.
To be fair, I was working with Dave about an hour ago, in my defense.
Yeah, that makes it even worse, to be honest, Bully. That hurts even more. So we're not. We're going to have words after this. Let's just put it that way. I'm unhappy with you. Another one you've made angry in recent days, apparently. I think we need to touch on the ground again, because I know we've already touched on it here, but going into Thursday morning, the Mildmay course was good to soft in places. The national course was soft heavy in places. So if you thought the conventional course was going to be testing, then my word, the Grand National course is going to be something even more special, I'd say, and that's going to make it even more unique. And there is no horse more proven in handling those conditions than last year's winner, Chambard, who I thought was a completely ridiculous price at 14-1, given the state of the race and how he won last year. There's absolutely no reason for him to hide anything. And this horse, this race generally goes to tough stayers that have had many a battle. 14 of the last 19 winners were age 9 or over. Multiple winners have been a common occurrence. Walk in the Mill won back-to-back renewals a few years ago. Lookalikes of Vieux Rouge won it at 11. Oscar Time won it at 13. Hello Bud won it at 12 and 14. Age not really a barrier, especially when conditions are like this. He's £5 higher than when he was last year, but you could have put £15 on his back last year and he still would have bolted up because it was just a case of him handling conditions better than anything else. I don't see why anything else will be able to handle it as well as he can. I know he's 12, but he's actually not overly raced for his age. And if you want any trainer in the world to get a horse ready for a race like this, a staying handicap chase in deep ground, Venetia Williams, please step forward. I think 14-1 is a massive each way price for the one horse you can absolutely guarantee will handle these conditions.
Yeah, 12-year-olds. I'm going to put forward the other 12-year-old in the race, actually, Celebra de Len. He was back to form last time with a bang. And did it well a banger on DJ. I see you shake your head then.
You're both putting up horses older than yourself, Tom.
Not quite me. Maybe
History
me.
says it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's actually a veteran with a serious amount of ability still. He's rated 147. I mean, it's pretty amazing, really, for a 12-year-old. And he's won at Aintree in the past on the mild make horse. Holds no fears to him. He was fourth in the 2 mile 5 race at the end of last season over the national fences at Topham. But I mean, he doesn't really want that trip now. I think he needs further. He won over 3 miles at Bangor last time. Soft ground doesn't hold too many fears for him either. He likes soft ground. Heavy ground, maybe not quite as adept on, but still, I mean, he's got pretty good form on heavy in the past and very good form on soft. So I wouldn't be too worried about conditions for Celebrity Led. He's definitely one that should handle it better than others. Maybe not as well as Chambard. But he comes to in great nick, and so do the Philip Hobbs and Johnson White team. So I think there's quite a lot to like about him. £7 rise, not going to be too worried about because it's a bit of a idiosyncratic test, isn't it? And I think he's classy on this day, classy enough definitely to handle that kind of mark in a race like this. So he'd be my pick in the Becher Chase. Celebra Delend, 12-year-old, the second 12-year-old we put up for this race. Finally, in Aintree, it's the handicap held to close the card, the 317. Chock-a-Block is just about favourite. The Nagaridi, Santos Blue, Tamar Bridge, etc., are all towards the top of the market. Dan, you kick us off.
Jeez, another handicap I just really struggled to wrap my head around. I like Chock-a-Block as a horse. I just have no faith in him being able to handle the ground as it's going to be. He's got no evidence to suggest he will handle it. The horse with the most scope, I'd say, in here. But again, you really forget handicaps, forget scope. What's going to handle the conditions is priority number 1 and 2 and 3 for this kind of day. So be reluctant to back him. If I was going to back anything, and I may well not, it'd probably be Santos Blue because he won on heavy ground towards the end of the season at Utoxeter. So at least has that in his favour. And I think the form of that is pretty solid. The third, actually, I think won today at Leicester. He is up £6 effectively for that, with Ben Sutton losing £2 of his claim as well. But he's proven these galloping 2.5-mile tracks on deep conditions are no bad thing. And he was second to Crambo at the start of last season on his seasonal reappearance, which obviously has worked out pretty well. So I think he has potential just to run his race. I think he's 8-1 currently. That's fair enough. But yeah, not a race, again, I'm massively enamoured with.
No, I'm not really either. I have to say, I think it looks very open. I thought the Nagaridi had a very good chance. Conditions should suit. Been in decent form, but I wouldn't be massively confident about the chance because it is really fiendish, I think. Go on, Jake.
I mean, if you want a horse who's going to definitely handle conditions, then Pyramid Place is your port of call, really. He's 3 from 3 on heavy ground. He's won over 2.6 in the past, so he stays further than this trip. The only problem that you've got with him is he's up to a career high mark of 136. He qualified for the Temps last time, going up £6 in the process. Is he a horse that would rather come down the weights than go up? He's not first string on jockey bookings. You know, Sean Bowen's gone for Tamar Bridge, so that might put you off slightly, but he will handle conditions, and he's what, 12-1. It's a decent little price if he is, if he's trying. Like Dan, Chock-a-Block is the one that I'm most interested in here. I'll probably play him half stakes purely for the fact that we don't know he won't handle conditions, but we also don't know that he will handle conditions. But he's got by far the most potential of these, in my opinion. He beat the Doyen Chief last season. He was second to Cade Bourbon at the Air Festival at the end of the year as well. Like, if he did handle conditions, I would have him miles favourite of these. But obviously that's the unknown you're playing, so that's why I'll probably play at half stakes.
If this was good to soft, it'd be 5-2.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
But it's going to be like the Battle of the Somme, which is a bit of a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going to be very, very hock deep, as they used to say. I'm going to go to Dan for anything else for Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, a couple I'd be interested in. The first is up at Wetherby. The 123 is a 3-mile handicap chase. Really interesting horse in here called Late Night Rumble, who's half brother to Late Night Pass. Whoever's going to know, winning the Fox Hunters cross-country winner last season too. Late Night Rumble's a multiple point-to-point winner in his own right. Second in a Hunter Chase race at Cheltenham with their traditional Hunter Chase meeting to a horse rated 129. Very interesting campaign thus far, shall we put it. 2 runs over 2 miles over hurdles. Unsurprisingly, wasn't sighted in both. Then went up to 3 miles in a novice hurdle. Showed much more. His tongue tie went back on. Has a mark of 110 now. Clearly, just those 3 ones look like a pure handicapping exercise. You can make a fair case at a mark 110 based on what he's achieved in point-to-points, and that run in the Hunter Chase is absolutely fair. You look at Tom Ellis's strike rate with hurdlers, it's 7%. Strike rate with chasers is 23%. So him going over fences for the first time in a moderate enough race has to be of strong interest. No prices yet, but I'll be intrigued to see what it opens up. And then the Welsh National Trial with 137 at Chepstow. Again, I think the weather actually surprised me for Chepstow. There isn't as much rain forecast as anywhere else, but I still think they're going to get a fair bit of it. So I think you're looking for a horse who's going to real handle some testing ground, as you tend to expect with Chepstow this time of year. My God, you have some strange horses in this. Brave Kingdom, Good Risk at All, Regal Blue, Gelino Bello. So many horses you haven't seen for ages and can jump abysmally or pulled up multiple times. It's a real head scratcher. I think you've got a few in there who'll just be happy to have a good run, but one horse who connections have said needs to run well if he's going to get to his target, which is the National itself, is No Hubs, No Hoobs, who despite being off a career high mark, he has the incentive to run well. They've already said they generally need him to go at least go close before they probably sneak in at the bottom of the weights. He actually may get in off his current mark, 124, but I don't think they're leaving anything to chance. Had a really nice spin round on Wincanton on good ground just to kind of shake the cobwebs off. All of his improvement towards the back end of last season came with blinkers on first time on really testing ground. He should get that. He stays 3 mile 6, so you've got stamina assured. And in a race full of really dodgy propositions, he's won with a spin under his belt. They've clearly targeted this race to win it, to then go on to the main race itself. A forward goer as well. We know that suits Chepstow. I think there's a lot to like about him, and he's currently 10-1, which I think in a race, as I say, with full of question marks, he's probably the most solid proposition in there.
Okay, cheers, Dan. With the Welsh National Trial and the London National, could get to about 5 p.m. with still some horses finishing at various tracks around the country on Saturday. Jake, what about you? Rest of Saturday and Sunday?
Yeah, I'll start off at Aintree because there's one race obviously we missed out, which is the listed race, which isn't on ITV, the listed juvenile hurdle. There's 5 in here, and I could only see that Static realistically has any chance of handling the ground. Obviously, he's a horse I've spoken about on this podcast before as a horse to take forward when it gets softer. Liam Swagger's back in here reopposing. He's going to be £2 worse off, and he's never ran on ground anything like this. So I cannot see how in the life of him he's going to be able to handle it. Static obviously comes from France, got that softer ground in the book already. He's ran some really nice races, obviously both behind James Owen horses, was behind East India Doc the last day, but obviously East India Doc could be anything. We'll see what happens with him. But yeah, I thought that Static had a really good chance there. Over in Ireland on Saturday, there's 3 that I've got my eye on. In the 12 o'clock, Echoing Silence runs here for Henry de Bromhead. Obviously, I mentioned his team of young horses, really outperforming at the moment. Last weekend we had the 4th in the maiden hurdle, which was annoying, but the stablemate finished in 3rd, the one I didn't fancy. So, he's still going well. And yeah, Echoing Silence is a mare for the Honeysuckle Silks, and she cost an absolute bomb as well. So I don't know what type of price she's going to be, because Willie's got one in here. There's a JP horse in here. There's loads of nice types. I'm hoping she'll be a backable price, but yeah, she's definitely one to keep an eye on. And then 2 handicappers as well at Navan in the 142. My Trump Card makes his handicap debut. He steps up in trip to 3 miles. Carl Miller is going to take £5 off, and he's rated 128, which I thought was quite lenient in the first place. Beat Dr. Eggman the last day. He's got some decent form in the book over bumpers and hurdles as well. So I thought he would have a good chance now going handicapping. And then probably the main one in the 217 at Navan, Safra finally steps up in trip to 2.5 miles over fences. Yeah, he was 4th in the Grand Annual off a mark of 145, which is a really good effort. He was staying on at the finish. He's had a spin over hurdles as well on the 17th of November, just to blow off the cobwebs. That was over 2 miles 6 in a handicap hurdle. 2.5 miles over fences, off mark of 143 in Ireland. I think there's a lot to like about his chances, and he is #1 on jockey bookings as well. So that's obviously lovely. And then just one quickly on Sunday, as I mentioned right at the beginning of the podcast, you got the 240 at Kelso. It's a new 2 mile handicap chase. And Trapain Law has had this in his sights for a long time to Lucinda Russell. He's a horse who will just love every bit of rain that Kelso are getting. Hopefully it gets really soft ground, because he absolutely relishes those conditions. I think he's a 2 mile handicap chaser to follow on those type of conditions. And as I said, this is his target. He had a spin around in the intermediate chase over 2.5 miles at Carlisle the other day, the Colin Parker Memorial. Obviously, 2 miles is much more his trip. That was on a bit quicker ground as well, so softer ground is going to help him out. And as I said, this has just been the target. So hopefully he'll be winning the race, and JPL1 will be running away terrified if he does get declared.
And bad news for you, Bully, is that Matata's currently jocked up for that race, but no Martator anywhere.
Yeah.
So, more bad news for you.
Shows the depth of research that I've done for this show. Actually, do you know what, Jake? Good old Sapphire. Nice to see him tipped up by yourself. Big fan of his.
Jeez. If
Fingers
he
crossed
wins,
can finally
if he
deliver.
wins now over 2.5 miles, can I fish my plate slips out of the bin? For God's sake, honestly.
No, you have to back him for this and trust the process.
Oh, I hate the process. It's a miserable process.
The process don't work for me either. Right. That's it, I think, for this week. Lads, been really enjoyable. It always is. Please do remember to like and subscribe. I'd love to get to 150 likes if we possibly can. And do comment down below with your best bet at either Aintree or Sandown, or indeed anywhere else over the course of the weekend. We're going to be back next week to preview Cheltenham's December meeting. Until then, it's goodbye.